Folks, how you doing? Bill McGold-riffs back with you, and thanks for joining our show again. Episode number 15 of McGold-riffs. And before I get into anything, I want to thank the staff here. Jen, Andrew, and Katie, and everyone else who supports the station here. It's so cool that we have this available to our town here, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate their effort, because these shows are a lot to produce and a lot to edit and a lot to get out there. And I tell you, we've been getting well over 300 views in the past few, and I hope we're going to get a whole bunch, because I've got a monster in-house today. I've got Mr. Gary Backstrom.
I got scared.
Great guitar player, and let me get into a little bit of who this young man is. Young to me. Everyone's young to me.
I like that.
Okay, Gary Backstrom, the front man and founder of New England-based jam band Jiggle the Handle, and I want to talk about jam bands because, I guess my generation grew up with that stuff. I really didn't really get it. I was not a big Grateful Dead guy, but I did love the Allman Brothers. But I want you to educate me on that world.
Okay.
You played regionally as well as toured the country many times over the past 30 years. You must have been like 5 or 6 when you first went out on the road or something like that. Gary has played the High Sierra Fest and headlined Berkshire Mountain Music Fest, Strange Creek, and Wormtown Music Fest. He shared the stage with really everybody. Max Creek, Assembly of Dust, Strange Folks, Ryan Montbleu, as well as opening for the Allman Brothers. They're a pretty well-known band.
Kind of heard of them.
Derek Trucks, Los Lobos, and I want to really, if you remind me again, I want to talk about that jam bass thing, and I want to talk about opening and how that is, and you know, because there's ups and downs with that.
Yes.
And because I've had friends of mine do a lot of that lately, and they enjoy it. And you've also played with Liberty DeVito, drummer. I don't know if you there's a documentary out there right now about these sidemen. This sort of thing, and Liberty got a big piece of that, and really kind of a sad story how things happened to the negative with Billy Joel there. And again, we got so much to talk about, man. We're going to try to do this in an hour here, but the symphonic rock group Piano Men, and I want to talk to you about my one time playing with the Louisville Symphony Orchestra, which was very intimidating.
Isn't it?
I'll tell you quickly, before we get into the whole thing, I used to play with the Platters. You ever heard of the Platters?
Yeah.
Only you. I traveled. I did a stint with them, and I toured with them, and we did a PBS special with the Louisville Symphony Orchestra a few years. It's probably about 9 years ago right now. But man, I was pretty intimidated playing the pit orchestra with all these monsters. I looked over the top at the keyboard, at the violin players, and their charts looked like EKG. I'm there. Oh my God. And when I was playing with them, I would not play the actual arpeggios, you know. I would just I know this is a C, so I make up my own arpeggio until I heard the harpsichord player playing the exact arpeggio. I'm well, I better nail it. So I was a little nervous. It was a Saturday afternoon rehearsal, and I only had one big solo. It was "Proud to Be an American." When the Platters would walk off stage, and I do like a Top Gun solo type thing, you know, that soaring kind of thing.
You had a feature, basically.
Yeah. So I did that, and I ended the rehearsal, and all these string players came over to me. I'm there. Oh, what are they going to say? Did I screw up something? They said, "Wow, you're unbelievable." But that was so I want to talk about your symphonic thing. So you've performed rock concerts with that orchestra. Recently, Gary's put together a stellar 8-piece lineup of amazing musicians to form the Gary Backstrom Band, and it's Gary Backstrom. STROM.com here on Chris Nemitz on keys, Everett Pendleton on bass, Peter Copen on drums, Yehuba Torres on percussion, Kit Holiday and Kevin Sylvia on harmony vocals, and John Vanderpool on sax. I want to hit on the band. I want to talk about how hard it is keeping that many people. It's herding cats with musicians. There's no doubt about it. The new lineup is touring the Northeast and finishing up a new CD, which we will play a little bit later on, called The Story, one of the tunes from that CD, and we'll kind of jam on that in the jam out. Recently, Gary and crew have put together a tribute to one of his biggest influences, Todd Rundgren, who's one of my favorite, and just had a couple of big hits in the 60s that really turned me on to him. I don't know if you watch Daryl's House.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see the Todd?
Oh yeah, there's two of them. Yep.
Right.
There's the Daryl. There's two. The one is live from Daryl's house, and then they did live from Daryl's house at Todd's house in Hawaii.
I saw that one. That was the one I remember the most because it was such great scenery, and I think he produced a few Hall & Oates albums.
Yeah, he did.
Right?
He did War Babies was the record that he did.
And the Hall & Oates, the biggest duo of all time.
Right.
They consider Todd Rundgren God.
Yeah, they're buddies. You know, those guys are tight.
A live show falls somewhere in the realm of soul and R&B, which is my favorite stuff, of Stevie Wonder, blended with a fiery Latin rhythm. You have a live album? Is that an album or is that a free download?
What I sent you was just a full concert that's on archive.org, and there's a bunch out there. I think there's links to those on my website where you click.
And I just did that, and I heard Dance Sister Dance, which I love, and I grew up again. Why did I buy a Paul Reed Smith?
Right,
because Santana had one. And why did I buy a Mesa Boogie? Because Santana. So we have the same influences. Next March 20th of 2020, Gary will pay tribute to singer-songwriter and guitar extraordinaire Todd Rundgren at the Regent Theater in Arlington, Mass., which I'm told is a great, one of these great 5 or 6 Regal Theater is also a good one, and I'm hopefully going tonight to the Cabot Theater, where you can see major national acts touring for like $30, not $800.
Yep.
And so you're going to play there. That's great. And you're going to have your 8-piece band augmented by Todd's sax player, Bobby Strickland, and Greg Hawkes from the Cars. You know, so Gary also teaches privately at the Brookwood School. He's also fluent on bass, piano, and is a singer-songwriter. And you're a great guitar player, but I think you're a better singer.
Thank you very much.
I really, and I want to talk about that because it's rare. Like I told you, I might want to see Robert Cray tonight, and he's got, I think, just one of the best voices out there.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I would go to see him just to hear
him sing, right?
And again, Gary has a whole bunch of, he's on Facebook at Gary Backstrom Band and GaryBackstrom.com, and a whole bunch of YouTube as well. And so why don't we start here? I'm going to talk about everything. So we did the jam. So let me you tell me the Gary story. Yeah, and so where are you from, man?
Okay, so I grew up not far from here in Needham, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. In fact, my dad's birthday would have been today, and I've just sold their house. They're both just
been through that. Yeah,
passed on. So, sort of finishing that chapter, but that's where I started. I live in Gloucester, Mass. I've been there for about 20 years now. And I started playing. I was 4.
No way.
Well, I didn't. You've really
just broken the bell curve, man. I had 7 to 15.
I don't think.
Now it's 4.
I don't think I really played anything. I had a guitar that looked like this. It was made out of plastic, and it had strings. I just banged on it. But
cool.
But I knew I wanted to do that. I remember being 4 and knowing I want to be a musician, and I just knew that. Like,
4, and I know on your Facebook. I know when you were born. So we're talking early 70s here.
667. and yeah.
What did you see? What made you think of guitar at 4?
My parents listened to Johnny Cash and Elvis a lot, and I think I heard all that twangy guitar.
I hear that trader coming.
Totally. And
Rocking around there,
mesmerized. I remember being 4 or 5 and making my dad walk uptown with me to the music store and buy 8 tracks of Johnny Cash. I said, "Can we please get some more Johnny Cash?" And then, oddly enough, Jackson 5. Those were my 2 first
Yeah, they
loves.
were as big as it got back then. Yeah.
And the music, those styles they're different. But somehow those are the 2 sort of spheres that I think I got into when I was a little kid. And I was an only child, so I obsessively listened to music constantly. And 50s music, like when you said the Platters.
Really?
Oh my God. If I had the chance to play with the I don't know what I would do.
You know, it's just we were talking, not to get sidetracked, but how these things happen. It's luck, there's talent, there's work and desire and all that stuff. But it was a Thursday night, about 5 in the evening. A buddy of mine I used to play with said, "Hey, our guitar player can't make this gig. Can you make it?" I'm there. "What is it?"
Here? Somewhere near
Yeah, at Regal Theater in Waltham.
Okay. All right.
And I'm there with the Platters. I'm there, "What? The Platters? Like only you and smoke gets in your eyes?" He said, "Yeah." I'm there, "Do you have charts?" "Yeah, I'm a pretty good reader." And he said, "Yeah, just bring your amp and your stuff and a tux." And sometimes that's how it goes in this business. Just a luck sort of thing. And I did a few years with that. So you get me into when you really started, like 7 or 8, 9?
Yeah, so around 8 years old, I became keyboard obsessed, and believe it or not, I was really into the Captain and Tennille, and I would watch that guy play keyboards.
Yeah, he could play, and they could sing. Yeah,
synthesizer sounds. Yeah, that, and oddly enough, the Monkees were like my 8-year-old music realm.
It's funny because they were out of it by then.
Yeah.
By the time you were 8 or 9,
it was all...
I mean, they were hip 10 years earlier. Yep. 65, 66.
I think my cousins gave me an album or something. Or the TV show was on.
I mean, I love that stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, and the writing was really great. And then the Beatles. So somebody for Christmas knew I liked the Monkees. They thought, "Oh, you like the Beatles." Another 8-track tape of the Beatles was called Rock and Roll Music, and it was all their stuff from it sounded like late 50s, early 60s music, which I was obsessed with. So anything that sounded like rockabilly, And then I went, well, this organ stuff is great, but boy, guitar sounds like fun. And then I noticed there were chord shapes on top of I had a Beatles songbook for organ. And I thought, oh, geez, I have this crappy guitar that was bought at a garage sale. I'll try it. And I saw you put your finger here and you put the other finger there and the little, the chord diagram.
Right,
and I'm like, oh my God, that's a chord. So I started messing around back and forth between organ and guitar.
You were 7, 8?
8, between 8 and 11. That's
okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't think I was. I became really Beatles obsessed after that, and that opened
5th, 6th grade.
Yes, and got every album. And listened to them nonstop. Posters in the room, plastered, just staring at them. And I tried to learn every song, every guitar solo. And I think that also led me to being vocally obsessed because they're such great singers, right? So not only in my mind, do you have to be good at playing your instrument and writing, but you got to be able to sing because they all sang, right? All of them. And they, and they're all great. So, that lasted a long. I don't think it ever stopped. Really, I mean, I still love them. I probably took a hiatus when I was in my late teens because I burnt myself out on it. But
so you start taking lessons at that 11, 12-ish sort of thing.
In 6th grade, they did a seminar at my 6th grade school in Needham, and they showed all the different band instruments. So some were wind instruments and other things, and percussion and piano. There was no guitar, but there was this great bass player. I think his name was Mr. Wren. He gave lessons in the junior high. So they said, when you go to junior high, this is what you can do. And he played the bass. And oh my God, so that's where my bass thing came in. I'm like, I want to do that because the thing just rumbled the room. I'm like, that's amazing. They didn't offer it because no one signed up for it. The group lessons, there's not enough kids. So I ended up taking guitar, 7th grade guitar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have 30 guitars in a room. You know, everybody grab a guitar.
Cool.
You have 30 kids all trying to tune the guitar.
In like a 5th, 6th grade?
This is 7th grade.
Wow, so it's like middle school.
Yeah, and they would teach you how to play King of the Road and
Yeah.
little things like shaving a haircut. They try to get the whole, class to do that.
Which is tough with 30 kids?
At least 20. It was like a full classroom. I don't know how the guy did it. But and right around that time, I must have been my parents. Somebody told them there's this great guitar teacher named Harry Klein. And oh, man.
Is Harry still with us?
Yes. Harry, if you're out there.
Harry, this is you.
Harry.
Yeah. Hopefully you send that to him, man.
No, it's true. He comes once in a while.
There's always somebody. There's always one person who does that thing for you.
And if you're listening, Harry, I'm not making any of this up. This is all true. I would go to lessons, and Harry could play like, he had a big arch top. He'd play like George Benson. He actually got accepted into Pat Metheny's group to tour.
Really?
But when he realized he just got married, it was a 2-year tour. He just had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the story. And I think 2 years of touring would have been a lot. But he was good enough to get in there. And he could read anything, improvise over anything.
And he was a private teacher, not in the school system.
I think he started it at the high school. And then quickly after that, he said, I got to start doing this out of my house and offering hour lessons. And he said, I want you to come be one of my, students.
So it wasn't a store, because I know there's a music store to this day in the center of town there in Needham.
It's a great store. It's a really
I've never been in it.
It is. They've kept it alive. It moved from
which is very tough today.
It's so hard. It's been owned by many different people too.
Yeah.
Over the years. That's where I got the 8-tracks when I was a kid.
People don't know what 8-tracks are, but that's another episode completely.
Episode on 8-track recording. So I would go to his house, and the thing I remember the most is just watching him play. I'd sit there with my jaw like on the floor, and he'd often just start to just
Let me interrupt you there. Where were you? Were you cowboy chord?
I started with trying to be I think I was trying to do
big
Beatles
G,
stuff.
the big open chords.
Yeah, I was doing that, and I was trying to learn chords like that.
Augmented chords.
Yeah, and some diminishes and 7th chords.
Diminished, yeah.
But mostly open, and I could do like, I learned that. Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing about learning that, is I had an 8-track tape of that. So in order to rewind the tape enough to hear it, to learn it, you had to flip the tape over, play the next track, and then put it back. That was
really awkward.
It. Yeah,
that's probably worse than records.
It was torture.
Yeah,
it was really torture because we just want to rewind for 5 seconds, and you'd have to take the thing out, play the other side for 5 seconds, flip it back over.
So what did he get you into?
So he
get you into the
jazz.
cool chords.
Totally. Yep. I still have boxes of notes, triads. I remember triads reading. Taught me how to read. I never got as good as he could read, like what you're saying, stuff that looked like an ant farm, right?
Right.
He'd put it up and it'd be like, let's play this. I'm like, I can't read that.
Yeah.
Jazz chords, modes, harmony, how to improvise, how to shut up when someone else is soloing. Like, that's one of the best things I learned. He'd be like, dude, always part of the lesson was, here's a chord progression, let's jam.
Right.
You solo also, you solo
which I think is missing right now, Gary. I'm amazed at how many people who can't do that sort of thing, and they become YouTube experts, and you don't know how many millions of takes they did to get some unbelievable thing down. But you get them in a blues jam, man, and they're lost.
I've heard that from. Do you ever watch the Rick Beato?
I love Rick.
Yeah. So he was just saying that the other day. He was just saying the same thing.
Yeah.
He's like,
just
incredible. Yeah.
You should be able to pick right up on that and just groove.
Right. He was saying that there's so many virtuosos that he loves on Instagram and YouTube. He thinks they're amazing, but the one thing he feels they lack is the sense of, here you're on a stage, can you improvise for 5 minutes?
And can you share the stage? So talk about this again. 13, 14, 15. Bands?
Yes. So then, at 11, I put together right as I was starting.
11?
Yeah, but I was still, I remember playing G, G7, and C, and then I learned D, and I'm like, oh, you can play Love Me Do with that, right? So me and my best friend, Dan O'Neill, who lived down the street, who I'm still friends with, he had a guitar. We both took from the same teacher.
Mm-hmm.
We learned Love Me Do. And then we had a friend that had a snare drum. So there we get a band, right? 2 electric guitars and a snare drum.
Yeah.
And so we learned a bunch of Beatles songs and sing and play for our parents. We'd say, we're going to have a concert this Sunday afternoon at noon in the basement, and would set lights up and everything and would play our little...
And the parents came, yeah?
Yeah, they came.
Yeah, cool.
So the Beatles was a really big thing for me. I think I probably learned between the lessons and being really Beatles obsessed. Think about the chord progressions in those songs,
Yeah.
Because, in 50s music too. It's very elaborate and
well, you think about that. Not to get on a tangent here, because this is the Gary Show. But I did read recently how first of all, 20 of the top number one hits in the past 2 years written by 2 guys, producers, Max somebody from Sweden and somebody else, and most of the tunes had either a 1/6/4 or 5 in them. Do you realize how many Beatles hits? The Beatles had 21 hits. How many songs had 1/6/4/5 in it?
I know Let It
only
Be
one.
has it. Oh, it's Let It Be, right?
It's Let It Be.
Right.
But we're going to do, I was just listening to you tune the story. It's a really cool harmonically. I think it's going from really centered around the key of A, but all of a sudden it's like a flat 6. And I don't want to get too technical, but the guitar players out there know that's such a cool sound to go from there.
Yeah, major, and then it's minor. Yeah.
Very cool,
Chicago.
very hip. And I don't want to get too involved in that. So you're in that middle that high school sort of 15.
Yeah.
Then what happened to get in that 16, 15, because you start getting serious, 16, 17, 18, you start playing real dances and stuff like that. I assume. So you tell me the Gary story.
Absolutely. Yep. So the next version of that band, we had a shopping carriage that someone let go in the neighborhood, and we took it. We put all our amps in there. We found another kid.
Did you get a picture of that, man? I'd love to get a picture.
I wish I did. The cops would stop us. With me, I'd wheel it up to my friend Dan's house. We'd put our crate amplifiers when the crate amps were still made of wood. Do you remember that?
Right.
We put them in there, and our guitars, cover it with a blanket. It'd be like 30 degrees. Then we'd push it down to the another mile to our friend's house who had a drum set, and our other friend who had a sax, and would meet them in his basement. And I don't even know what we called this band, but we're at that point we're trying to play Blondie in the cars and stuff like that. And the cops would stop us and go, "Son, what's in the carriage?" And we'd go, "It's just our equipment. Like we could play a song for you if you want. Do you want it?" So that anyway. I'm just cracking.
That tough crime-ridden neighborhood of Needham.
Right? They're like, okay, let's go. That didn't last very long. Then I don't remember. That was junior high school.
Yeah.
And then high school came, and that's when things got serious. Still taking lessons from Harry and advancing, getting into things like, I guess what was popular at the time, like the Cars were popular, Led Zeppelin. Yes.
1/6/4/5.
right. And you obviously say I got turned on to Led Zeppelin and Leonard Skinner and stuff like that. And so high school came. Yeah. Still me and my friend Dan. Dan, if you're watching this, are you playing? Dan still plays. He's a great player. Other friends, the friend that I'm still good friends with today, his name is Dow Brain. He's a keyboardist and a recording engineer. He's played with all kinds of people. David Gould was our high school drummer. We had a bass player named Scott Clark there, and we called our band Oracle. It was
cool name.
It was a very 80s
It's a big name of a database company. It's already taken, but Oracle was something from the Greek mythology as well. So
we had shirts and everything made. And
really?
Yeah, we just played classic rock.
Cool.
And so dances at the high school, right?
Right.
Or keg parties or whatnot. And it was all just Zeppelin and the Who and all that kind of thing, or yes.
And you were doing high school dances outside of Needham?
No, just in Needham. I don't think we ever played outside of Needham.
Right.
Yeah, we did our first gig was a bar mitzvah. That was very
really
interesting.
Rocking the bar mitzvah.
Playing Smoke on the Water. And
Won't get fooled again.
Yeah, I know. It just did not fit. I felt like we were ruining everybody's time. It was terrible. But that was.
How about the gazebo there in the center of town there near the high school? Did you play there? Because I've actually played there.
No, that wasn't there when I was a kid.
Because they did summer concerts. So a lot of every summer now in Needham.
I need to get in touch with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 2 guitars, bass, drums, keys, classic rock.
Mm-hmm.
Then we discovered Pink Floyd and Yes, and started to branch out into more, and Rush and things like that, and Police. So that's all high school. I don't know how in depth I should get or how.
What is it like? Who's that? 6-string.
Oh sure. I don't think
then,
we did that.
Then that song leads that the band broke up.
Yeah.
He got married. So what happened? So you got to college.
Everybody went to college.
So everybody went to college.
I did not go to college.
You kept on playing.
I kept playing.
Cool.
For better or for worse, I don't know. I kept playing, and another friend of mine, a drummer named Andy Golub, who I'm still friends with from Needham. We started playing, and we had a bass player named John Keating from Needham, and that same keyboard player, Dow Brain, also from Needham. We started playing like a post-high school group, right? And we would do parties, and I think that might have been when somebody got me into the Grateful Dead. And yeah.
And the rest is history.
I got really into it. Now I'm not. So a lot of people will peg me as being. I guess I'll always be a Deadhead in some respects, right? Because that's just something you embrace. But yeah, there was a lot of that music, and actually, honestly, at the time, it wasn't that popular. It's very popular right now.
Right. It's interesting because it was really from my generation, that whole thing that came there. And I admired Jerry. I was more, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, that sort of thing.
Me too.
And, but I did see them at Watkins Glen in '72, which was a bigger festival than Woodstock, actually. My mother wouldn't let me go to Woodstock, unfortunately. I was 14.
Wow. Were you trying to?
So what else then after that? So you got into the jam band thing. And tell me about that these days. What does it mean?
All right, so...
Because I missed Fish. I don't even know their music at all. So you're talking to someone who doesn't even get that.
It's a weird phenomenon. That band I was telling you about was called Ice Nine. We were named after the Grateful Dead publishing company. That's how much we were into it. And then after that, the band I got into that really did this stuff was Jiggle the Handle, and
which you're with to this day.
We still play here and there. Now my new band is sort of an extension of that band, basically. And still, it was not cool to play Grateful Dead music. It really wasn't. People weren't that. And I just got, what I got obsessed with was the jazz improv stuff that they used to do in the 70s. They would go off on these beautiful tangents of just listening to each other and really collectively jamming. Like, it wasn't so much...
Which I think is missing in some of our... I just wonder what some of the kids who are these monster players, what are they going to do? And, okay, I'm over here at Major 7 now. What are you going to do?
Right. So somebody could take a solo over that. Right. But what they were doing was a modal thing where it would kind of like... You ever listen to Bitches Brew, the Miles Davis?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like, here's a mode... So
I love when Miles got into that stuff.
Garcia would be soloing here, and the bass player would be kind of soloing at the same time. They'd play off each other. The keyboard player and the other guitar player would kind of be improvising using triads, and so everybody was collectively. It's like a big volleyball game. And I'd never heard
working
that
together
before.
as a team.
Yeah,
but being a star when you had to get the ball over.
It needs to happen, right? And then but taking it in like beautiful directions, like and this stuff was just coming off the cuff every time, and then the jam would organically land, and they would go into whatever the next song is, seamlessly. Sometimes it changes.
Again, I'm not a big fan of the Grateful Dead, but I've heard some nights that worked, some nights it didn't.
Some nights it didn't,
right?
When in the 70s, I think it worked 80% of the time. I feel like they kind of stopped doing that as much in the 80s. And honestly, I was still, as far as songs go, more of a pop music fan, like Beatles,
Mm-hmm.
or things like R&B, like Stevie Wonder.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say I like Madonna. I was into Madonna in high school. I don't know
Yeah.
what.
Paul Fresco was her guitar player and musical director, and he still is amazing. He was with Hall & Oates for years.
Yeah,
as well.
and stuff like Hall & Oates, right?
Right.
So I think I really just gravitated towards the improv part of the Grateful Dead.
Right.
And then there was this whole wave of, in the early 90s, bands that started doing things like that, but writing their own music.
Mm-hmm.
So it still wasn't cool to be doing Grateful Dead music. It was more cool to do your own thing. Write your songs. So bands like the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler and Dave Matthews and Fish, obviously they're, and the Dead were also all playing at the same time, Widespread Panic. And we got to open for some of those bands.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Okay, so somehow we were lucky enough to get scooped up.
This is Jiggle the Handle.
Yeah,
right.
Very early on by a management company that booked places like the, what is the casino ballroom in...
Hampton.
Yeah, and big places in New Haven. And they would have us open for the Spin Doctors. We did all the prep schools and colleges opening up for them. It was luck, right? We got in a good place at a good
time. Fell
into
a good thing.
We were playing our own music, no covers.
Right.
All originals, but we would... we weren't doing Grateful Dead covers. We were playing what sounded more like funk music at the time, because that's what we all liked. But it was more just the spirit of, okay, here's the funk song, and now we're going to do a jam that goes into another song, and we're going to make it up on the spot. So really that's more, I think, what I took away from that whole thing.
Was it cool playing in these great venues?
It was great.
Great PAs.
What a learning experience at that age.
What'd you bring? What were you like? You bring an amp? Or would they let you bring an amp?
Yeah, you could bring an amp. I, at the time, was kind of a weirdo. I played through a Gallion-Kruger amp about that big.
Well, the Gallion-Krugers are very clean transistor, right? They're not tubes.
Transistors.
Right.
And they have a great dirty channel that sounds kind of like... They try to emulate a Marshall.
Cool.
And you plug an XLR cable into the back of it.
So it's an out to the PA through an XLR.
So it's easy, just guitar.
Cool.
I had a channel changer, no other effects.
Really?
No, I just...
So that's cool to clean, to come walk right on.
Right.
Plug in.
Right, and I got that from Scott Morowski, the guitar player from Max Creek, who lives very close to here. That's what he used, and I would go see him a lot as a teenager, and that man is an amazing guitar player, and just watching.
We need to get him on the show.
Scott, you should come. Yeah, I would watch him religiously, and it was like a guitar lesson every time I would go. And I saw him one day get that amp, and I'm like, that sound, like, that's amazing. And so they used to be like $800 at the time, those little amps.
Yep.
You can buy them for $200 used now. So, anyway.
So you did a bunch of these opening for the national acts. Take me back then to Jiggle the Handle. What happened? Did you get any A&R interest? Did you get any record company interest? Where did it go? Was it a missed opportunity? Or, tell me about the trajectory of that thing.
Right. So we rode the jam band wave, and who knows if we would have had any success if that wave didn't happen.
And you're kind of known in the jam band world, right? Yeah. As one of the players in that space.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. We would always try to write songs that were catchy. Like, for a while, I was really into Little Feat, so try to write in that style.
Grooves. Right. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would always try to make sure, I would try to make sure the songs had really good hooks for the choruses.
Cool.
So we tried to make sure
you were trying to write commercial stuff to get a contract.
That's right. So we didn't have to have jams if we didn't want to. They could just be songs that stood on their own. So we put out a cassette tape like everyone did in the early 90s before everyone put out CDs. The band went through a lot of changes, and you can let me know if you...
So I've read a bit about this, but that's the nature of bands, and we've talked about that on this show. It's herding cats, which I want to get into the Gary band now, and because there are realities, there's money, it's getting people interested in, and you got to pay them in order to keep them. Otherwise, they book something else. Yeah. And it's very difficult now. I think it's worse now.
Right. Back then, we were all in our early 20s, and no one really cared.
Right.
We didn't even take the money. We just put it back into the band.
Right.
And everyone worked
Which
jobs.
is what the smart bands do.
Yeah. And we just know.
It's an investment.
Right. And we weren't all in other bands. We were just in that band. I was just
Which is
doing
the difference of the 90s and today. People have got 4 or 5 projects.
Yeah, and even I do. But I really enjoy having just one.
Me too. Yeah. I kind of like that.
You put your heart into it.
Right,
you know?
right.
So, I don't know, there was no record interest or anything like that until maybe the mid-90s, where we changed members around a lot, and the writing got better. We got my friend Paul Wollstonecroft, he's a keyboard player, became our keyboard player. And so the later lineup of the band was Chris Q, Paul Wollstonecroft, Greg Vasso, the drummer, and this guy, Michael Pujato, who lives in Nebraska. He's a percussion player from Chile. That version of the band did have some interest, and we did. I'll leave you CD.
Back when there were labels signing people.
Yeah, and of course,
bizarre thing.
You always right, and you'd get send us some stuff. We'll give you feedback, right? I at one point, the Allman Brothers drummer Butch Trucks was interested in us. He was starting a label.
Cool.
He came up and took us out to lunch. I don't think anything happened with the label, so it never happened. But we got in a lot of, I don't know, we never really made it on the radio. College stations, yes.
Like ERS type?
Yeah. We used to play at a live music week all the time and across the country. So when we do tours, we would always build in a playing live on whatever the college station was in an interview. And they would keep our stuff. And back then, people would buy our CDs from our mailing list. And so people would have the music, say, in California, because they bought it off the mailing list. And I don't know how these people got, well, because we'd tour and they'd sign up. So the next time we'd come through, they'd know all the songs. It was a different world.
Really cool.
Yeah. But it was done without any Facebook and any of that. You know, it was just. When did
Jiggle the Handle break up?
Sort of officially, I think 2001 or 2.
So that's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, and we played into the early 2000s, even though I think it was hard to.
We have a part of the Boston scene, like the downtown, the city, playing those clubs.
Yeah, I mean, we used to play the Paradise.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you open for someone in the Paradise, or did you?
At first, yep. But then we used to headline there.
You headlined the Paradise. That's a big, big deal.
It is. We used to headline Harper's Ferry 2 nights in a row.
Yeah, which is now the Bright Music Hall, and that was a great place too. Great stage, and all the college students live right there.
Yep. Yeah, we were totally tied into the scene again. The jam band scene itself infiltrated everywhere.
Right.
So lucky for us, it's like surfing a wave, and that wave sort of took us into a lot of places that maybe we wouldn't have gotten into, if that didn't happen.
Now, I've told you about another show that I listened to, a podcast by the name of No Guitar Is Safe with Jude Gold. And he's now the guitar player for Jefferson Starship, which is another sort of thing. It's essentially a tribute band, but like 1 or 2 members are still in it. And the tribute world is a lucrative world for the musicians right now. Is that a similar thing in the jam band world? Well, and my point about Jude was he was the guitar player for JGB, which was the Jerry Garcia band tribute band, right? And they did very well.
The one that's playing now, the one that plays
he was
now?
in that, and then he's now in Jefferson Starship,
right? And probably a little bit of a San Francisco connection.
And he's San Francisco Bay Area guy.
Yeah, there's a funny crossover with groups that maybe you think wouldn't gel. We were playing in San Francisco, and I saw a picture of Jerry Garcia and Sammy Hagar, and
at Northern California guys.
Yeah, they hung out all the time, and they used to. That was their place to show up. This bar,
as well as play. The Jefferson Starship was. There were a whole bunch of those Bay Area bands. They probably all were buddies, and they were probably all growing up in that area.
Right, like Vince Welnick, who played with the Grateful Dead, was also in the Tubes. And was also in Todd's band.
And the Tubes were in North. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's what you don't.
I love the Tubes. Another, and not to get sidetracked again. I really have a big gripe on the ZLXs of the world, because there are 30 bands or so and the 31st band would be like
5 songs.
Jethro Tull or the Tubes, and you're not gonna, or Savoy Brown.
Right.
You know, it's like bands I loved, but they didn't make the cut in that world. Todd barely gets any play in that world. Yeah. It's really, you know, again, I don't want to get into another, but why aren't some of these classic rock stations carrying Bonnie Raitt's latest album? You know, which is cool. Or Todd's latest album. Right. You're never going to hear Paul McCartney's, any of these guys, Sting's, none of their new stuff gets any airplay anywhere, even on Sirius.
I remember thinking this. Do you remember when they first termed the term classic rock? Like, that wasn't there before, right? So you had BCN playing 365 degrees of rock, which meant you might hear Ella Fitzgerald and the Sex Pistols.
And that's what I grew up with. And it was an era you kind of missed, but BCN was underground. It was like
great.
What is the word I'm looking for? Not dangerous, but you know, you
dangerous.
didn't want to let your parents know you were listening to BCN.
No, there was all kinds of stuff.
I mean, but I get turned on to people who became these ultra, like Elton John was underground at one time. You know, a quick story about Elton John. I saw him in 1970 at the Wing, which was the music hall back then, and he was unknown. Place was half empty. He was dungarees and t-shirt, right? And he played this song, Your Song. And I was 15 years old, and I loved it. I immediately learned it, immediately played it to my high school girlfriend, and immediately told her I wrote it.
Oh, wow.
Because there's no way she would ever listen to underground, amazing. And it became like the biggest hit of the 20th century. So she broke up with me.
She said, Elton stole that song from you.
But BCN was just where you found Led Zeppelin and 10 years after, and Jethro Tull. Before any of the other stations, it was free flow. It's not what it is right now. It's all computerized. And well, let me. I want to continue on down our list here of things. Can you describe your style?
Guitar playing style?
Yes.
Jeez. I would say it's a. If I had to pick like 3 players to set parameters up, I would say Santana for the pure. I try to play with soul and fire.
Playing a note versus 1,000 notes. Well, nothing against Stephen Vai and those guys, but
I have a good.
Give me Santana any day.
I need to tell you a story about that in a minute. That exact subject. But then jazz stuff like Pat Metheny, George Benson.
As good as it gets.
Yep. And
now Benson singing? Because you're such you're equally on the vocals too.
One of my favorite things about him is his voice. If you know how he'll scat and play at the same time. Right. Sometimes he'll stop singing and he'll keep soloing, then he'll do both, and then he'll stop playing and he's still scatting. So the solo continues, but it's like it's like someone's turning up guitar and then turning it down, or turning up voice and turning it down. So the whole solo is this continuous thing, but sometimes you're hearing it on both guitar and voice, sometimes just voice and sometimes just guitar. Mm-hmm. It's just like that is mind-blowing to me. Because all that stuff's going on here. It's not just.
So you're hitting those rock guys, some of the jazz guys, and Metheny he's my age, maybe a year older, and I was teaching at Berkeley when I was there in the 70s. Yeah. You know, and as a monstrosity, and he was on the road with Gary Burton, and Gary was an improv teacher of mine years ago, and so anyone else,
Warren Haynes, for the same reasons. Derek, the way they build solos, Clapton.
Any slide? Are you a Dwayne guy?
So I didn't bring my slide, but yes,
You'll do some slide.
I got to play with Derek Trucks a few times, and I had quit playing slide completely because
He's amazing. I've really not caught a lot of his stuff, but I was more into Susan Tedeschi, and she then got me. She married Derek Trucks.
Right. Well, we opened for him a bunch of times, and he was nice enough to sit in with us, and he'd stand right where you are next to me, and he would. I have the slide on, obviously. In
beautiful SG.
Oh, SG, and then a Fender, not a deluxe, but a what's the tall
Princeton.
Fender?
Yeah,
Super.
No. Super reverb.
Turned up to 10 every knob, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. I go, how do you get that sound?
Doesn't that sound awful?
It was amazing. It was
Really?
great. Yeah,
Well,
he had a piece of plexi.
Again, it's
in
not
front of it.
the instrument sometimes. It's usually what the fingers are doing.
Yeah, and he'd turn his volume down, but when he wanted to rip it...
He's one. I played with guys like that who are more... I tend to think the pickups don't work as well when they're down.
Yeah.
I actually just got this changed. I don't know if you have the original. So it actually should stay... uniform as you turn it down.
I don't have that on my PRS, which I wish I brought now.
Because you turn down, it's awful.
It gets
sounding.
muddy, right?
So you really got to go with the amp.
But it's watching him play all of a sudden. I can't play anything like he can. But I got something. It was like getting a free lesson. Just watching the way he held it and the strings.
And that makes me want to talk about that whole opening thing. How close do you get to meet the rock stars, or do you not?
It depends on who they are. So the rest of the Allman Brothers, besides Butch, who took us out, not. They would show up on buses.
Well, think about that. 40 years on the road. They don't want to meet some obscure band, whatever. That's how they look at it, probably, right?
O'Teal would hang out. Derek would hang out because he knew us from when we played with his band. So he was very friendly. It depends. We opened up for Rat Dog. Bob Ware listened to our sound check and came out and shook our hands and said, "I'm Bob. That was really, really great to hear your song." And so some really nice people. Everyone in Todd's band is amazing. They're all... Those guys are great. They're just so nice.
Cool. And have you met Todd yet?
I've met Todd, but it's funny. Before, when I was more just a fan and I wasn't doing any of his stuff, I would go to shows and get him to sign something. I've bumped into him at a hotel lobby.
Sometimes you meet your heroes, and Jude Gold, actually, the guy we talked about, he met Neil Schon when he was younger, and Neil was going through some stuff. Some issues with the substance stuff, and it was not nice to him. Then he met him years later, and he said, I don't remember the 80s at all, and sorry if I was mean to you, but so let me get down the road of gear, because I notice you have a nice Fender Strat here, but you notice you got something odd there.
This isn't working right now.
What is that? Another pickup?
Well, when it is working, there's this battery pack back here.
Okay, so it's active.
Yeah, what it does is...
I noticed. I didn't even see that.
These two, yeah. When it is working, you can flick this, and you can get acoustic guitar sounds out of it.
Did you have that made for you like that?
No, I bought this from a student, and I didn't buy it because of that. I just love the guitar.
So you're still teaching. I forgot about that.
I would tune it for him, and he got it at Jazz, and he said, I don't want this.
Oh, yeah, you have these odd kind of... Yeah, that's kind of different too, right?
He put this pickup in, yeah. And so, so basically you can get... you can set it to acoustic mode or 12-string mode or baritone mode, and then it does alternate tunings with this. So as long as you don't hear the strings. Yeah, it's cool. And it also do a Telly and a Les Paul from one of these switches. Cool. I need to really get it working again. But this is...
on to more gear. What PRS, are you using? Guitars, amps, pedals.
Right, so it's this or the PRS, which I didn't
And what's this?
That is... Shout out to my friend Rob Platt. That's a Platt amplifier. My friend Rob makes it's a copy of a deluxe.
Right.
He hand builds them and he'll tweak them to your liking. So you can come in and play, and then he'll take the head out and tweak things around and put different capacitors in.
Were you using the Rat for the overdrive?
That was the Rat with this, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I have this, and he also built me a Pro Reverb, which is more like a twin.
Cool.
And yeah, that's what I use. They're incredible. There's no chipboards in them at all. Just tubes.
Cool. And is that what you use on stage now?
Yeah, usually I use the bigger one. The one that's more like a twin that he built for me.
100 watt?
Actually, it's more. I think it's a 45 watt. It has a tube rectifier in it.
Cool.
But this is only 20, so this is like the half brother of the other one.
And anything else other than the Rat? Or you had another big board of some sort?
I do. So I have a Line 6 M13 that I use just for reverbs and delays and choruses and boosts, and it's nice to have it all in one spot, not have to worry about wires, just this battery work.
Yeah, I got a big pedal board, and sometimes we go crazy with that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the Rat pedal is a classic Rat with... I love it. Every time I try another pedal out, I just come back to this. I can't get away from it. It just sounds really natural.
And so tell me about teaching. How's that going? Do you got a bunch of students?
I do.
Is it up? And you're from Gloucester. You're living in Gloucester now, and so you can teach, and people can get a hold of you, Gary Backstrom.
Yeah, my website has my number on it.
Cool.
I do. I teach out of my house too. I have a little studio in the house.
Kids, adults,
a lot of
all the
kids.
above?
But now I have a lot of their parents that are taking lessons from
Cool.
me. And I've had
Yeah.
people, in the music scene take from me too. Like kids that are like high school and early 20s trying to get into Berkeley and stuff like that will find me. So
you help them with that. Let me ask you, what would Gary in XYZ age tell Gary 16 today for advice? Today's world, not where you were back then, but if there's a Gary out there right now listening, and he's been watching our show, and he's been watching all these guitar players, with 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years experience. What are you going to tell that person to do right now?
I would tell
them.
And
their goal is to be the next whatever,
I would say besides practicing, which obviously you should do, two things. And someone told me this when I was 12, and it's true now. Listen to every kind of music you can, even if you think you don't like it. Try it.
Right.
Whether it's punk or I didn't love punk, but now I do. And there's different things.
I never went there.
I'm not a big. I don't throw punk rock on and drive around all day. But there's when I hear certain things and I like it now. But listen to as many styles as you can, even if you think you might not like it. It's like trying food. Try some different things. Besides what you're obsessed with. Mm-hmm. And then go find as many open mics as you can. If you're just
absolutely
and
play with others.
Let some people kick
and
your
screw
butt.
up. Yeah, make a mistake. Up. Do it there because there's a great one in Concord and Main Street's Cafe on Tuesday nights.
You're playing.
Tuesdays I'm there. This Friday. Yeah. But on Tuesday nights it's such a collaborative, positive. I brought this kid Quentin Callowart. He's from up in your area, from Rockport. He was about 10 when I brought him there. He's a Tommy Emmanuel. He's 18 now. He's got that finger thing. And there are 30, 40, 50-year-old guitar players in the room who said, I'm not going to play after that kid. But these things are collaborative. Go out and do this. So what else? Anything else?
Yeah. Well, so that's a big one. Don't be afraid to be intimidated and let people kick your butt a little bit and take numbers, like get contacts and go jam with them. Do it every week because they're free. If you're inclined at all to write music and sing and play acoustic guitar, which I also do, develop that because you're much more valuable if you can sing and if you can write songs. Yeah, don't be afraid to sing and go get singing lessons. Everyone does. It's rare people are just born out of the
I wish I did, man. I was never really good. We're running a little bit short on time right now. We've got a recording we want to play. Can you introduce this recording? Tell us about the new CD
yes,
in like less than a minute?
Yeah, the new CD's been taking forever to do, but we're close to maybe the 2/3 mark, and this is the first song that's finished. It's called The Story. I wrote it when I was in Jiggle the Handle, and we used to play just the end jam part was all I had then. But so this is the rest of the song, and it's a poem that I set to music, and I don't know what to say. You'll hear it. Yeah.
And we're gonna jam out on that, so you can listen to that recording right now.
Now as this song plays through my head, I think everyone can hear it as if everybody knew the words to the story of my life, as if they knew words to the story of my life, as if they knew words to the story of our lives.
Okay, I have 2 last things. We're going to jam out here on his new thing. And tell me about being a dad for 3 kids.
That's my
and
favorite.
how that is. It's difficult, as a musician.
It's hard. I have 2 daughters, Sadie and Nora, and my son Jonah, who's an amazing drummer.
How old is he?
He's in 9th grade.
Cool.
Sadie's in college. Nora just started playing guitar. She's got my high school guitar out and wants me to
And
put
how old are
strings
the
on it.
twins? You have twins?
No.
The girls, how old are they?
Sadie is 19 and Nora's 16.
Cool.
I have a stepdaughter too named Molly, who's already grown up and out of the house. But that's the best part of my life. I would never trade that.
Same with me. My daughters are 29 and 26.
Yeah, right.
I tried to get them into music, and it didn't work. I'm also a pilot. I
force it.
tried to get them into flying. That didn't work either.
Oh, man. I would love to talk to you about that.
Cool.
But that's the best part of my life. If I couldn't play tomorrow, I have them, and that means more than anything to me. And I never knew it would be like that until I had kids.
Cool.
You never know.
Yeah, I know, man. Okay, so why don't we jam out on this last tune? Why don't you start with the groove, because I can't really remember it.
It's kind of weird. It's all right. We'll go.
Thanks. Come back next week.